pursuing worldly goals. He's not talking of the jnani. So, in verse 20, what did he say? He said, I create the desire because ignorance is the cause of desire. You remember we saw that? A person chases after other gods, he says, whose wisdom is destroyed by various desires. Where does the desire come from? Emptiness. Where does the emptiness come from? Ignorance. Ignorance comes from Brahman. So I create the desire. In 21 he says, Tasya tasya chalam shraddham. This shraddha with which he pursues worldly goals, and it is so fascinating. If you see a person who's chasing money, my God, he just goes after it consistently, whether he achieves it or not, right till a ripe old age, never gives it up. A person who's after name or fame or political power, he just goes on and on and on. There's no thinking, there's no stopping and thinking about what is it that I'm investing, how much energy am I investing, what is the return on that investment. No thinking. But there is a shraddha in that also. There is a consistency. So he says, I maintain it. How does he say I maintain it? Because you will never stop. Nobody is satisfied with worldly achievements, because the fact is that you are essentially infinite and you will not rest content until you reach that infinite. The world gives you only finite joys, so you keep on and on and on at it. That's how he says, I maintain this shraddha. And now in verse 22 he says, I fulfill it. Endued with that shraddha, the person worships that, and from it he fulfills his desires as ordained by me alone. So in other words, what he's trying to say is, this pressure that we feel within to go out and accomplish things, to go out and achieve things, that pressure will never cease until we turn to the spiritual path and get to realization. Please understand that. So you might as well go to it directly rather than from this convoluted way. That's what he's saying here. So whatever it is that you're seeking, endowed with that shraddha, you seek it and that desire gets fulfilled. But the problem is, even though the desire gets fulfilled, you're not content. It doesn't satisfy you. So you go on and on until eventually you come to the spiritual path. So as far as he's concerned, he says, I create the desire, I maintain that desire, I maintain the consistency, and I fulfill that desire. So this is the life of an ignorant person, meaning the life of all of us. 23.
Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedhasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi.
But the fruit accruing to those of little intelligence is finite. The worshippers of the gods go to gods, my devotees come to me. Now what he's saying here is, take a look at worldly achievements. The greatest of worldly achievements are still antavat. Antavat means they have an end. They are finite. You take a person who's made a lot of money. What happens? There's still a limitation to that. He can't go beyond a certain limit. You start a company, let's say J.R.D. Tata started Air India and he put his heart and soul in developing this airline. What happened? Nationalized. Apparently that broke his heart. Emotional. You invest your energies, your time, everything in developing a relationship, and at the end of it, what happens? It boomerangs on you very badly. The more you pamper, the more attached you are. We saw these relationships yesterday. The more you invest in a particular relationship, the greater is the boomeranging, the greater is the sorrow that comes out of it. Intellectual, honor, reputation, name, fame is even more flimsy, because just one person has to say something negative. You know, you invest a lot of your efforts in building up a reputation, and just one person has to say something bad about you. It spreads like wildfire. You don't understand. The public, people are get swayed by every little thing. And this is brought about so beautifully in Julius Caesar. Shakespeare brings this up in Julius Caesar, where Julius Caesar is assassinated by Brutus and his coterie. And Mark Antony is the only one who understands what's happening. So he goes to the scene of the crime and asks for permission to speak at Caesar's funeral. By which time Brutus has already worked on the crowds and given them a fabulous speech, the likes of which you may not have heard anywhere else. And he's managed to get, so the whole crowd is with Brutus. He tells them, not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. And he makes himself to appear like a martyr. So the crowd is saying, hail Brutus, hail Brutus. His, what do you call this? The popularity charts are at an all-time high. Mark Antony appears there. So Brutus is still in that nasha of public opinion being with him. So when Mark Antony comes and asks for permission to speak at Caesar's funeral, he says, what's the harm? Let him speak. Anyway, Caesar is dead. The second mistake he makes, he's so confident. He hasn't read this Bhagavad Gita. He's so confident of his stand with the people that he leaves the scene. And Mark Antony works on the crowd. If you read Mark Antony's speech, it barely takes 10 minutes, a couple of minutes. But in those few minutes that he's got, he says, I've come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. And throughout he keeps referring to what Brutus has said, smashes what Brutus says, and he says, this is the truth, and this is what Brutus says. Yet Brutus is an honorable man. He says, Brutus said that Caesar was ambitious, and I offered Caesar the crown thrice in public, and 3 times he's refused the crown. Does this seem ambitious? And yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. Within minutes, he smashes everything that Brutus has built so carefully. And this is what you need to understand. So don't go by public opinion. Don't go by ratings. Don't go by all the rest of it. Because these are all flimsy. Today, people will speak well of you. Tomorrow, they will have no qualms in denouncing you. And the best part is, the people, they praise you for no reason at all, and they denounce you also for no reason at all. So there's no method in the madness. Even, see, how many of us, when we speak ill of people or when we praise people, how much of it is based on fact? How much of it is based on truth? It's just hearsay. Somebody says, so you repeat it. Therefore, what he's saying is, understand that all these achievements are antavat. You build an empire, you build this, and your value, they say, they publish it. But it's all notional value. It depends on what? Stock market. And stock market itself is based on the most ridiculous things. How can you depend on such things? For one moment, for no reason at all, your value has gone up. You know, during the IT boom, Azim Premji was apparently asked, he says, what are you doing that the value of your company has gone up? He says, I don't know and I don't care. So, that's what it is. A person who understands, a person who gets carried away by this is alpamedasam. People of little intelligence. See, Krishna is a highly refined person, so he says little intelligence. What you should understand is totally stupid. And all of us belong to this category. We bet our lives on such flimsy things. And when that goes, you're left crying. So, alpamedasam. So then he says, the worshippers of the gods go to the gods. Yes, you worship little things, finite things, you'll get it. But what you need to understand is, for the same investment of time, effort, and resources, you can get the infinite. Why not go for it? What are you doing wasting your time with all these trivial things, petty things? My devotees come to me. What an assurance that he gives. For which all you have to do is pursue it consistently. It's not difficult. 24.
Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayaha param bhavamajanantaha mama vyayamanutthamam.
The ignorant, abuddhaya, regard me, the unmanifest, as having manifestation, not knowing my supreme state, which is immutable and unsurpassed. He's speaking of Atman, Brahman, but even in the relative, you see, you, depending on your level, you project your level onto others and judge people accordingly. For instance, I believe Sarojini Naidu, when she first came in contact with Mahatma Gandhi, used to refer to him as Mickey Mouse. People around Jesus Christ referred to him as just, isn't he the carpenter's son? They didn't understand his grandeur. It said a man took a diamond ring to a vegetable seller and asked him, what is the value of it? He says it's equivalent to 10 kilos of potatoes. He took it to a cloth merchant. He says it's equivalent to 50 meters of cloth. It is only when he took it to a jeweler, a diamond merchant, that he got the real value of it. So similarly, don't waste your time trying to assess others, trying to judge others, trying to rate others. Because you can rate only according to your intelligence, and your intelligence is alpamedasam, finite. That's what he's saying here. And when it comes to God, it is even more. So with this, we conclude for the day.